keep the standard. You can't bully me down, cause I won't change. I exercise tolerance amongst all individuals, unless you prove yourself to be a criminal.
I promise. I didn't show up here at the conference. I just didn't go in because these aren't my kind of people. They believe in abortion, you know, and cronyism. They want to give more lawyers more work by making this convoluted mess of legalization. It's really, you know, got so many loopholes that I can't possibly get behind it. And with MPP involved, you know, there's cronyism because MPP and NORML are connected at the hip. And if you know anything about NORML, you know, they ain't very good liberty-based group, because most of their laws include loopholes for the law and for lawyers to be in business. Like I-502 up in Washington. I-502 was a convoluted mess, everybody knows that, and that was an ACLU project. And now, right now at this conference, they've got Shanna Bellows speaking, and you know, she's a crony, obviously. She doesn't even fight for hemp. I've looked at her stuff, you know, I've been on her Facebook page, and I've seen the ACLU website for Maine, and I've read her work, and you know, she doesn't ever fight for marijuana. Why she's speaking at this event, you know, she's an abortion activist. Why she's even speaking at this event doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, this right here, Exodus 30:23, that's the key to legalization, because the First Amendment protects our religious freedom, and marijuana is found all over the Bible as a religious ceremony. And if the First Amendment protects our religious ceremonies, then certainly it protects marijuana usage for religious purposes. You know, go and have a joint, pray. That's what your religion is, right? That's what mine is. And it protects all Abrahamic religions, as well as the Hindus, because that's also found in the Hindu scriptures, you know, in the Bhagavad Gita. Shiva was the god that brought hemp down to the people. So it doesn't just cover one religion or another. If your religion is cannabis, even if cannabis is your god, you're protected under the First Amendment. Now all we need to do is fight for it. Everyone's like, well, everybody still gets arrested for that religious stuff. Yeah, well, look what's happening in Washington and I-502. People are still getting arrested up there and going to prison. If that's legalization, then that's no better than religious defense. You know, you look under these Supreme Court rulings, Gonzalez versus Raich in 2006, and you see what happened there. Religious usage of cannabis is a viable defense, and it worked for Angel Raich. Now, they had a lot of marijuana, so they didn't consider the quantity religiously viable, but the usage of cannabis for religious purposes was deemed as a viable religious defense, or a viable defense against cannabis charges. So just look up Gonzalez versus Raich and many of these others. The Oklahoma Native American Church, they've got a religious exemption. That was passed in 2010 with James Flaming Eagle Mooney. We don't need new laws to replace laws that exist, because the laws that exist are unconstitutional. All we need to do is fight cannabis laws in the Supreme Court. We need more people to attack that in the Supreme Court. Someone gets busted, they need to, you know, go and fight that in the Supreme Court. Take it as far as you can up the court system, and we'll have our legalization, or our deregulation of cannabis, because it's unconstitutional. You know, tell me what they did constitutionally to make cannabis illegal. Alcohol had to have an amendment. Alcohol prohibition required the 18th Amendment for that to be a prohibition. And if there is no congressional ratification of a constitutional amendment, then the prohibition isn't legal. So cannabis prohibition is not illegal. And when we make these new laws on a state level saying, okay, we need to restrict this and we need to restrict that, and we need to regulate this, we need to regulate that, we need to add taxes, all that's doing is adding more convoluted laws to the system, which shouldn't even be existing in the first place. There shouldn't be any regulation of cannabis. So these new laws are stupid. MPP is a cronyistic group that works with lawyers, and lawyers' main income is from drug laws. If the drug laws go away, these lawyers are out of business. So why are they even working with lawyers? I think that's a conflict of interest. You know, that's why I'm against it. So I'm done. I'm not playing with these people. They drew a line in the sand. They invited an abortion activist to speak. I'm done with them. Fuck them. That's it. All right, man. So while the conference is going on and they're in there doing a circle jerk, preaching to the choir, telling people, oh, we gotta have ACLU involved. You know, we back them, the abortion people. We love the abortions. And let's put Shanna Bellows up here so she can get some FaceTime with voters because she's a big abortion activist who works for the ACLU and, you know, she's running for Senate. So let's get behind her. Let's promote her Senate campaign so we can kill more babies. Blah, blah, blah. And while they're in there doing that, I'm out here plastering the town with my posters that talk about real legalization. See, it doesn't take a genius here to figure it out. We got the First Amendment, right? First Amendment protects our religious freedom, right? And, you know, the government can't impede on our religious freedom. That's our First Amendment. That's an important one. And see, what I'm doing is I'm putting this up to inform people about Exodus 30:23. And there's a link and there's a little QR code. And if they want to just go to that website, they can learn about these cases in which the Supreme Court has deemed cannabis protected under religious liberty from the First Amendment. So I'm plastering the town with this while they're in there talking with this abortion activist. Now, I'm sure they're not talking about abortion. I imagine the word abortion has never came up in that conversation. But that's all that girl does. That Shanna Bello, that's her main priority is abortion. You know, she's all about abortion. And she isn't about cannabis. I looked at her page. I looked at the ACLU website. I looked at her campaign speeches. You know, I really gave her a thorough investigation because I wanted to give her a chance. I didn't want to prejudge her. I went back almost 8 months on her Facebook page. I didn't find one mention of cannabis until November 30th of this year. And I'm trying to get this battened down a little better so it doesn't fall off. Anyway, that should work. It only has to be here for a little while. And I'll put up some more later. And I got them all down this street. And that's the point here is, you know, when people go to this QR code, they can learn about, like Gonzalez versus Raich, the Oklahoma Native American Church, all these Supreme Court rulings, that cannabis has been deemed a religious defense or defensively protected under religious freedom, under the First Amendment. And see right here, there's my license plate, HIP 15. Doesn't that look like little pot plants right there? That's the local agriculture license plate for Maine, and it looks like little ganja plants there. So, you know, I'm out there promoting it every day. My truck, let me show you my truck. You'll see what I'm talking about. While these guys are in there having their circle jerk, me just driving around town is promoting cannabis freedom. This is what I promote every day I drive, which is pretty much every day. I go all over this state promoting cannabis as an industry, as a religious freedom, as a constitutional right. They're in there having a circle jerk trying to create new laws to regulate cannabis that don't need to exist. Cannabis prohibition is not constitutional. Didn't they have to ratify the 18th Amendment to make alcohol prohibitive? Well, you know, Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution doesn't give them any right to make cannabis illegal. There's limits to what the government can do, and it's defined in Article 1, Section 8. And cannabis does not fall into that, and nor has it been ratified as a constitutional amendment. Cannabis prohibition is currently illegal. They can't enforce it legally, constitutionally. They'll do it anyway, obviously. A lot of people are going to jail for it. But it's not legal. It's not constitutional. They can't keep getting away with that. And if people keep challenging them in the Supreme Court, eventually they won't get away with it anymore. Eventually, we'll get rid of this cannabis prohibition issue once and for all. We can't just submit to these stupid regulations that are just making it harder for us to get around cannabis laws. When they're, enacting new taxes and licensing and all this other bullshit, all that does is make it harder for us to have freedom. It doesn't enable us anymore. It doesn't do anything for us to, enable us. It restricts us. More laws mean more laws, period. We just need to get rid of the existing laws and replace them with nothing. And so anyway, I'm going up and down the street posting these signs so people can understand that cannabis prohibition is not even a legal aspect of our Constitution. Nothing about it is legal. Cannabis prohibition is wrong, it's illegal, it's unconstitutional. We have religious freedom rights, and most religions have a history, especially these Abrahamic religions and Hindu religions. Most of these religions have a history of cannabis in them as a religious ritual. So cannabis prohibition is illegal.